Hello and welcome back to the Trashion Icon. I am your host, G. Spencer Morton. In this episode, the G stands for It's lovely to see you again, darling. Together we will turn crap into couture, garbage into glamour, and trash into trashion. Each episode we will be exploring a new kind of pollutant, garbage, trash, wasted material, thing you should have cleaned out of your closet a while ago but really couldn't justify, so now we're going to use this as a way to justify creative hoarding and take those items, materials, inspirations, and such and the likes to create an entirely new garment, taking trash and turning it into fashion, aka trashion. Everything I use will be garbage, secondhand, or a wasted material in some way. I make no guarantee it will be a success, but I do guarantee it will be an adventure. I think by now you may have noticed I'm a little bit obsessed with fashion, just a little bit, and you may have picked up on the fact I'm particularly obsessed with vintage fashion, specifically within that specificity, vintage hats and vintage gloves. When you think about it, gloves are one of those timeless accessories that have actually lasted a really long time. Like, as far as fashion history goes, there have always been gloves. Medieval times, Renaissance, the 1920s, all over the world, across cultures, there have been hats and gloves. Gloves, 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 gloves. But since the 1960s, they've really fallen out of fashion, and we've not really seen them come back at all. We have yet to see a 2020 resurgence of gloves, which you think would happen with the whole reemergence of masks and a deep emphasis on like hygiene. But no, that didn't happen. I love this style of glove. The leather is so buttery and soft, and it warms to the touch in such a sensuous way. And the best part is not only is it like decorative and protective, it's also a great secret weapon. You know, no one ever sees it coming. Oh, you've insulted my family? Smack for you. And what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? Fight you? You have a glove. You literally have the upper hand. And it's coming in hot. So Trashion Icon does not support violence of any kind unless it's well deserved. But one of the reasons these kinds of gloves have lasted long enough to end up in bargain bins by the dozen is because they are so well made. Like, they're so well made. The stitching and the quality of the leather have held up really, really well because they were designed to hold up really well. They were designed for fashion and function. There can, in fact, be balance in the cosmos between fashion and function. Behold, evidence. Oh my god, so much nice. My apologies to animal lovers out there, but like, you can't argue with this kind of quality. They are well made classic gloves, and they're gonna outlive me too, in all fairness. So, when I die, you can do whatever you want to my body. Yay! We're gonna make you into gloves. I would love that. I am down to be recycled. But one of the reasons we still have a lot of vintage garments today is because they were unused. They were either preserved or hidden away in an attic or just left unused for various reasons. Up until about 40 years ago, clothing was worn until it was rags. Every garment was made to measure in quality materials, and you would wear whatever you had made until it literally fell apart. And once that garment has fallen apart, you would then take the fabric from that and either make it into cushions or toys or smaller garments for children. And then when those garments fell apart, you would use the remaining material, whatever it is, as rags or insulation or pillow stuffing. You used every part of that garment until it fell apart, made it into something new, and then when that fell apart, you would then use it again in a new way. There was a life cycle to these garments that meant that the material used was used to the fullest possible extent. And one of the only reasons we still have so many vintage garments that aren't made of leather or incredibly durable materials is because that was all the clothing that was not used. Think about it. The reason you still have your great 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 grandmother's wedding dress is because they never used it afterwards. They went to their wedding, they had a somewhat fulfilling marriage, and they put their beautiful wedding dress in a box, and it was never touched, worked with, or reused again. As we have discussed, more clothing is being made now than ever before, and not nearly enough of it is being properly recycled. It's just going to landfill or being shipped off to Africa or other remote parts of the world to just kind of rot or attempt to rot or not rot because polyester is the bane of our existence and it's going to come back to haunt us. So much of our current clothing can still be upcycled. Anyone can do this. Anyone can take their favorite band t shirt that is falling apart, cut it up, take that t shirt, make it into a tote bag, make it into a pillow, make it into a scrunchie. There's no reason that you should be throwing away clothing. There's no reason it should be in landfill. It should be upcycled. It should be recycled in some way. It should be shredded to be making insulation, stuffing, and it's everybody's job to do what they can with their wardrobe. Everybody's job to look at what are they wearing, what are they going to do with it at the end of its life cycle, and what are they going to make it into. You can't donate everything, but you can do something with anything. But getting back to gloves, one of the problems with these kinds of garments is because they went unworn for so long, they become unwearable. In the case of leather, leather shrinks if it's not worn. It's a organic material. It does change with time and it does degrade over time. So a lot of like vintage gloves or vintage shoes shrink over time if they're not stretched and worn. One of the most magical parts of vintage beyond the design, the styling and the quality are the stories. The idea that you are coming into possession of something that is not new and therefore it comes with history. You can see the history and how well worn and soft and well cared for. And it's really magical for me to think about who else wore these? Where did they go? Did they just manage to catch their train to Paris or did they slap their cheating, scandalous lover with them? What happened to these gloves and how did they find their way to me? These don't just belong to me, and they may be passed on to somebody else. But I'm a stop on their journey. I'm not the final destination. It made me think a lot about the people that come in and out of your life. Like, not everyone you meet is really part of your whole story, and you're not part of their whole story. I've been reading a lot of autobiographies. It's my favorite kind of reading because I love it when people have taken time to write their stories down and have been brave enough to share so much of their life with complete strangers that they will never meet. I recently finished three autobiographies: The Chiffon Trenches by Andre Leon Talley, Yours Cruelly by Cassandra Peterson, My Unexpected Life by Martina Clark. While all these authors are from very different parts of America and have had very different careers, they have a shockingly large amount in common. They all have very similar journeys of finding oneself, discovering their passions, and understanding many of the obstacles that are kind of common throughout all people's lives: first loves, first great disappointments, finding family, and persevering despite the odds. Oddly enough, all of these authors, in some way, specifically talk about gloves. Weird. All of these books are very entertaining and have thoughtful, poignant, hilarious moments throughout. But I was very surprised by how much I was moved by My Unexpected Life. I already knew going into the Chiffon Trenches and Yours Cruelly that I was going to enjoy them, but I was not quite prepared for the riveting and emotional and heartfelt journey that Martina Clark takes us on through her life. I was not ready to feel quite so much, and it was really good to feel. It was good to feel again. My Unexpected Life offers the very unique perspective of someone living with AIDS, living through the AIDS epidemic, and living to see the COVID-19 epidemic. And this is not a book that I would normally pick up. I'm not very interested in disease studies, but this was one of the best books I've read this year, and I highly encourage you go investigate it for yourself. Take my copy. You can borrow it. It's so much more than I expected. And one of the things that I really enjoy about reading autobiographies is that so much of the autobiography is giving credit where credit is due and really showing that no one is an island. Everyone is affected by other people who either help support them, push them in a different direction, try to tear them down, but really taking time to appreciate all the hands that support, guide, push, drag us in all of our different directions. Thinking more about vintage fashion and the nature of thrifting and the idea that you are just a stop on a garment's journey. You are living your life, but this garment has its own life. It has its own story. Who made it? Who wore it first? Who might wear it last? And how you are a stop on this garment's journey really helped me reflect on how many people have been helping me on my journey. Really appreciating how many people affect our lives all the time, including and that friend of a friend who gave me a box of vintage gloves. Even they have affected my life, and I've affected their life. Small world. Gloves, oddly enough, have had a strange history of being reused and transformed into other garments. They have been reinterpreted into corsets, gowns, hats, purses, and so many more garments. I love these reinventions and am very inspired to make my own. Moschino, Beetlejuice, and our own hero, Elsa Schiaparelli, have had their hands on gloves. Bringing together my love of hats, gloves, and vintage fashion together to create a garment I might actually wear on a daily basis feels like a very special win. The real point of Trashion is to take garments and devices and products that would have been wasted and create something that can be used. And this is something I can use. I hope this inspires you to keep the tradition of upcycling alive and to find new and exciting ways to transform all of your unused and unloved pieces into something you can love again. Thank you for joining us on another exciting episode of the Trashion Icon. I have been your host, the Trashion Icon. If you've enjoyed this episode or have any thoughts, feelings, or opinions, please leave a like or a comment down below. I would love to hear what you have to say, unless it's something nasty. In which case, I have a glove with your name on it. Nice comments only. Again, the Sonoma Community Center and the Trashion Icon do not support violence or the slapping of silly people with gloves. It's fun, but it should be avoided as you might be sued or leave a real big ouchie. This show is brought to you by the Sonoma Community Center and the Sonoma Trash and Fashion Show. If you enjoy this kind of content, please go join us on the Sonoma Trash and Fashion Instagram or consider renting or purchasing the 2021 recorded show available on the Sonoma Community Center website. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye!